Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage INSA President Suzanne Wilson Heckenberg.
I was instructed to be loud. Am I loud enough? Woo! Okay. Good evening and welcome to INSA's May Leadership Dinner. I hope you all enjoyed the receptions. Before we get to the formal, do I hear music? That was not my walk-up song. Okay. Before we get to the formal program, I would like to take a moment to recognize a leader who is not here with us this evening. As many of you all know, Vince Stewart unexpectedly passed away last week. Affectionately known as the godfather of marine intelligence, his 38 years of public service culminated with his tenure as Deputy Commander of U.S. Cybercom. Prior to that assignment, he was the 20th Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. General Stewart was an incredible leader and dedicated professional who challenged others to do their best, and a friend to many of you all in the room this evening. Professionally, he was known for his integrity, inquisitive mind, and willingness to disrupt the status quo. Personally, Vince was a kind and generous individual, devoted to his wife, Phyllis, his 5 children, and 15 grandchildren. Our 38th annual Baker Award recipient, we will honor his career and profound impact on U.S. intelligence and national security at our June 9th dinner, where we will present Vince and his family, in memoriam, the Baker Medal of Achievement. Now, I would ask everyone if you would just take a brief moment to keep General Stewart and his family in your hearts and minds. Thank you. As we get started, if you would please keep in mind that you should keep the noise level to a minimum. I know our speaker this evening and your fellow attendees would greatly appreciate it. You may feel free to start on your first course, which is salad. This evening, we are delighted to host the Director of DIA, General Scott Berrier. General Berrier, we thank you for your leadership, for your service to our nation, and for taking the time to be with us here this evening. I know the audience looks forward to hearing from you and learning about your priorities and the ways the private sector can best engage with DIA. Briefly, I would like to recognize a few of our corporate sponsors: Aerial Secure Technologies, Amazon Web Services, CACI, General Dynamics Information Technology, Google Cloud, Leidos, Maxar, MITRE, Oracle Cloud, Quadrant, Raytheon Intelligence and Space, SAIC, and well done, and Texas A&M University, the Bush School of Government and Public Service. We could not deliver this type of thought leadership this evening at the Ritz-Carlton without their sponsorship support. Also, a special thanks to INSA's Senior Intelligence Advisor, the Honorable Sue Gordon, for leading the Q&A later this evening. We know you will keep General Berrier on his toes. During the moderated discussion, we ask that you submit questions using the question cards on your table provided by Maxar this evening. The incredible INSA interns, who all want to work in a skiff for the rest of their lives, will be collecting your question cards throughout the evening. As a reminder, this event is on the record, and we do have quite a few folks from the press here in attendance. Now, we're going to hear some prepared remarks from our keynote speaker, Director Berrier, and here to introduce our speaker, please welcome Ash Thankey, Director, National Security, Amazon Web Services. Ash?
Suzanne. Thank you very, very much. Good evening, everyone. My name's Ash Thankey. I'm Director of National Security at AWS. It's a real honor to be here this evening to support INSA and the work that they do to support national security challenges. AWS is really proud to sponsor this evening's event. I'm especially looking forward to gaining new insights into the Defense Intelligence Agency's strategic priorities, including the emerging tech and open source intelligence to solve our nation's hardest problems and challenges, and to support DIA's mission. At AWS, we're really proud of our partnership with the intelligence community. Our partnership with the IC began 10 years ago, and together we have journeyed through the IC's first phase of digital transformation, providing the community with the speed and capability of commercially proven solutions. Today, the IC is more agile, more resilient, and more innovative because of this transformation. We recognize the IC's unique role in supporting policymakers and warfighters. At AWS, we are unwavering in our commitment to our IC customers and supporting their critical national security mission. We've made significant infrastructure investments and brought our industry-leading commercial services into the classified regions. Our work with the IC makes AWS better as a whole. It's my honor to now introduce an outstanding member of our community, Lieutenant General Scott Berrier, United States Army. General Berrier serves as the 22nd Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and prior to joining DIA, he served in the Department of the Army as the 46th G2, where he was the principal military intelligence and counterintelligence advisor to the Secretary and Chief of Staff of the Army and the Army's intelligence community representative. General Berrier is a career intelligence officer, having served as the 2 at every level from battalion to combatant command. The depth of his leadership experience ranges from company commander to commanding general and senior mission commander. He holds a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, go Badgers, and a master's degree in general studies from Central Michigan University, and a master's degree in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Scott Berrier.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is great to be here with you. Thanks for having me. I've got a book here somewhere, so I've got a speech. And I also have that speech summarized on note cards. So what would you like? Would you like me to read the speech, or would you just like me to talk to you? Okay, I'm with it. Right now, Suzanne and John are going, oh no, please don't do it. But thanks for having us, and thanks for allowing me to talk a little bit about the threat, about DIA, some of the things that we're doing, and I'll close it out with some thoughts on this thing called retirement or transition as I approach that chapter in my life. But before I get started, I'd like to do a couple of things. First off, if you are a serving DIA officer, if you are assigned to DIA, military, civilian, or contractor, please stand up. Right. Now, keep standing. If you have ever served in DIA, please stand up. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Please sit down. So I showed up with a platoon and I gained a company. It's pretty cool. Before I get started on the points that I wanted to make tonight, I did want to pick up on Vince Stewart, because many of you in this room knew Vince Some of you knew him very, very well. But I'm not sure that you understood or understand what he did for the Defense Intelligence Agency. He was a trailblazer. He was an intellectual giant. And he was somebody that had the strength of character to do what needed to be done. He was our first black director. He was our first Marine director. But Vince never led with any of that. What he led with was his strength of character to dive into issues and to get things done in a way like no one else could. And when you think about the time that Vince came in, it was 2015. Many of you remember what was going on at DI at that time, right? We had some leadership churn, we had reorganizational churn, and he came in and he just calmed the waters. And he said, hey, we're gonna drive on, the course has been set, we're gonna continue to operate, steady as she goes. And the fact that he did that was a big relief for the workforce. So imagine the morning after he passed on a big voice, talking to the agency as a whole about Vince's passing. And I said, our friend is gone, and we should take a moment to think about this. If you haven't thanked somebody, you should thank them. If you haven't told people that you love them, you should tell them that you love them. If you haven't gotten your personal affairs in order, you should get them in order. Because the only thing that is guaranteed is today. The only thing that you have is right now. Tomorrow is not a guarantee. And so this past week, we honored Vince with his family. And as you went into the funeral home, you noticed a couple of things. The pictures of Vince and his family, that smile, that larger-than-life presence. But you also saw a very composed spouse and family, and that family was surrounded by Marines. And I just really think that his passing is a loss for all of us. So thank you for the moment of silence. Thank you. So no briefing can start if you're the DI director without talking a little bit about the threat. But in this case, as I wind down my 39 years in the Army, and as I close out in the next 6 months or so, all that's pending right now, as I close out those 6 months, I've been quite reflective about the threat. So I thought what I would do is find a way to talk about the threat, but weave it into that 39 years and just see where the differences were. So I came in the Army in 1984. Think of this Cold War era. It was the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact lined up against the USA, NATO, and other allies. A very bipolar world. My first assignment, I was assigned as a Rifle Battalion S2 in the 172nd Infantry Brigade in Alaska. Battalion S2, young kid, 23 years old, didn't know what I was doing. We were supposed to be the Arctic warfare specialists, and we did a lot of that. But we also had another mission, and that was defending oil infrastructure in Alaska. Think of the Alyeska pipeline. Now, my 23-year-old self loved the Arctic warfare stuff. I didn't think much of defending that pipeline, that critical infrastructure. But as we can see today, that mission was actually a pretty good mission. It's probably something that they're still doing in Alaska, and certainly there are cyber warriors everywhere that are defending our critical infrastructure around the country. That Cold War ended, and then we had something what I call the Army of the In-Between. So I've been in 4 armies, the Cold War Army, and then what I call this Army of the In-Between, say 1990 to about 2001. And in that army, as we searched for our identity, what we were going to do, we did a lot of training. And this really goes for all of the services, whether it's Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Army, Coast Guard. We did a lot of training in the 90s to get ready for a war that we didn't really fight. What we ended up doing after 2011 is taking all that great training and turning it into counterterrorism missions and OIF and OEF. Many of you have served in some of those units. And that was the 3rd Army that I was in. And that Army and that service lasted for 15 or 18 years. And that was about joining a unit, training with a unit, deploying with a unit, fighting with that unit, inflicting loss, taking loss, and redeploying. And then meanwhile, the families are picking up on aisle 9 back home trying to keep it all together. That was a very tough military to be in. If you were an Army soldier or you were a Marine, you know what I'm talking about. The Navy was there, the Air Force was there. Those were tough days. But on my last rotation in theater that ended in 2015, I came out to Fort Huachuca, and started thinking deeply about what was going on in the strategic environment. And what was happening was China and Russia. And in fact, the study of Russia was really where the Army went with its modernization campaign. Remember the new look Army. They downsized, they got smaller, leaner, they acquired new capability. And meanwhile, China had been on a rise. And you've heard dates out there like 2025, 2027, 2035, 2049. All those dates mean something different, but it does equate with China's rise. And so now this fourth Army that I'm in is the Army of what I call strategic competition. And for all of the intelligence professionals in here, weave into that 40 years what your organization was doing at the time, because you were right there with us. I talk about Army, but all of my experience has been in the intelligence corps. And so as I think about this era of strategic competition, what is that? What is strategic competition? It's really nation-state rivalry. When one nation-state wants to overturn the international-based rules and do something different or change them. That is strategic competition. For the Department of Defense, that is a Title X problem. For DIA, we bring Title 50 capabilities and authorities to help the department solve that Title X problem. That is providing intelligence support to strategic competition. That's a new paradigm. In the past, in those past four armies, all of our agencies would collect information, we'd analyze it, we'd develop highly refined products and give it to a senior leader and say, well, you got a really bad problem. And then we walk away on another issue. The threat is constant, and it's a much more dangerous place in this tripolar world, and we have to do more. We have to be able to offer options with those Title 50 authorities to be able to do more. And DIA is doing exactly that. So let me transition a little bit on this current threat set. As we see it, the People's Republic of China is the agency's number one priority. There is no number two priority, that's the number one priority. Now Russia has kept us busy, but the PRC is the number one priority. And when I think about China, I always think about it in a three-stranded cable, right? The first strand is Xi Jinping and his political strategy. He now just got elected to his third term in the party. He's the man, he's going to be there for a long time. That political strategy is supported by an economic strategy. We call that the Belt Road Initiative. You all know what it is. That's fueled modernization for the PRC and other things. And then he's got this military strategy, the third strand of the cable. In that strand, he has created and exponentially increased his military capability. If you look at, say, a 1990 PLA and a 2023 PLA, the differences are significant in every domain, from space to cyber and everything in between. So those dates, 25, 27, 35, 49, we have to be ready, and DIA will be ready. If you think about Russia, the analogy that I use is a house, and the foundation of that house is that nuclear capability that Russia has. That's the foundation. They've modernized it. But the rest of the house, a little flimsy. Flimsy economy. They had the New Look Army. 2022 was a very tough year for Russia. That army is gone. What they're doing inside Ukraine right now is with a different army. And as you know, you follow what's happening in the Russia and the Ukraine conflict. We think that a counteroffensive is going to kick off at some point in the future. We are hopeful, and we are continuing to support our Ukrainian partners as that goes forward. And then in this dynamic threat landscape that is so much more dangerous than it was in 1984, you still have North Korea building and launching more capable ballistic missiles all the time. They threaten the homeland, and they threaten our partners and allies in the region. And what about Iran? Iran has the largest ballistic missile cache in the Middle East. They're creating dangerous weapons. We've seen them partner with Russia. You've seen those weapons inside Russia. In fact, DIA just produced an unclassified piece on those UAVs that we found in Ukraine. It's been televised all over the world, called them out on it. And so it is a very dangerous world. And don't forget the violent extremist organizations that are still out there, still creating havoc in the Middle East and Africa, a desire to threaten the U.S. homeland and the homelands of our allies. And so it's constant. We're going to have to stay on that. And so when I think about all that, and I compare it to 1984, it is a much more dangerous world. But DIA is postured to deal with that. What hasn't changed since our formation in 1960 is this foundational military intelligence responsibility. DIA must be the master sense makers of the operational environment, and we have a global posture to do that. Whether that's with our great defense attaché network all over the world, resident in over 140 countries, whether that's other collection operations that we do, whether that's other sensors that around the world, from space to mud, DIA is there, and we are postured. You'll remember that President Obama said in 2012, we have to pivot to the Pacific. Well, it took us a while. We've got a few things going on, but in 2023, we're actually going to pivot to the Pacific, and those plans are ongoing right now. But if you think about what DI is for, still for foundational military intelligence, if you think about intelligence support to strategic competition, if you think about Title 50 supporting Title 10, there's a lot we can do and there's a lot we can do. Inside DIA in the last 2.5 years, we've undergone a reorganization that's immense. Since about 2015, we had been in one set, now we're in a different set. We've stood up this thing called the DDGI, the Deputy Director for Global Integration. Think of a Chief Operating Officer, think of a J3 for DIA, with the authority to look across the agency, look across our capabilities, and move the right set of kit, the right people, and the right analysis to the spot that needs it in time. That's the first time we've really had that. We call it vertical and horizontal integration. In addition, we've set up a new IIC. The China Mission Group is now established, focusing on the China problem set and the Taiwan problem set. It's going very, very well. We also stood up the Indo-Pacific Regional Center. And so when I talk about DIA, I say this is not your mom's DIA and this is not your dad's DIA. This is a different DIA. This is about taking intelligence and operationalizing it in support of the department's Title 10 strategic competition problem. There are some other things that we are doing. We doubled down on partnerships. We created a partner mission integration center that takes foreign partnerships, academic partnerships, partnerships with you, partnerships with think tanks, and creating a partnership COP, common operational picture, so that we can understand what partnerships are working, what partnerships need a little help, perhaps what partnerships need to be put on hold for a while because the threat has changed. Our partnerships should probably change as well. And speaking of being good partners, I'd like to say that we're the only intelligence agency in the IC that has a Commonwealth officer as a deputy director. Major General Michelle McGinnis is our deputy director for Commonwealth integration. You won't find her position anywhere else. That is about getting after partnerships. That is about being a good partner and thinking about partnerships in different ways. Yeah. We're also doing a few other things, and I'll wrap this up in a second. We're also modernizing the top secret super information highway, JWICS. We have a great CIO team that is running hard to make sure that JWICS is the safest, most secure, fastest network available. We're also modernizing the military intelligence integrated database. Again, not your mom or dad's DIA. MARS will replace MIDB. MARS is the machine-assisted analytical rapid repository. So think of an infusion of AI and ML and all those standard data sets that bring to life contextually what's happening at military installations and with militaries around the world. Hey, and one last thing, we're also modernizing our HR systems. So if you think about it, as we have gone through budget cuts over the years, we've never invested in ourselves. We've always cut it. Well, not at DI anymore, not your mom's DI, not your dad's DI. We're investing in our HR team. We're growing it, we're growing business systems, and we're gonna do it better, faster, and stronger as we meet the challenges going forward in the future. The last thing I'll say about DIA is an amazing workforce. Many of those leaders, like Suzanne and John, are in the room tonight, Command Sergeant Major attending with me. But when I look across the workforce of DIA, this has been the proudest moment of my career to serve along with this DIA workforce. They are truly amazing what they do every day. Whether that's out in the combatant commands, whether that's down in Charlottesville, whether that's in NCMI or NMIC or DCTC, or you name the outfit within DIA, they're doing great work every single day. And we're integrating better than we ever have. So could we get a round of applause for our DIA workforce? So let me just close this out with a few anecdotes on the notion of transition. So I will be going through transition here in a few months. And I went to, when you're in the military, like Bob Sharp and I have gone through like retirement training, right? They send you to a class and you learn how to do stuff. And so here's what I think about the word transition. So if you're transitioning to something, you're actually looking forward to it. If you're retiring, you're not looking forward to it. I mean, I got to tell you, I don't want to leave. I'm not ready to leave the IA. I'd like to stay for 5 years. I've made that known to senior leaders, but no bites on that, unfortunately. But everybody has to go, right? There's always a list you're not on, so I guess I'm transitioning. But it's kind of interesting. So they tell you a few things like, hey, you're not really valuable to industry unless you're self-sufficient. So like, okay, what does self-sufficient mean? Okay, you no longer have a staff, you don't have an aide, you don't have an XO. So I said, okay, I'm going to take this on. I will be self-sufficient. So I decided to start with printing documents, right? No, it's not funny. The first thing that you have to do is actually map to a printer. Oh, how do you do that? There's a lot of printers in DIA. And then we have this thing called pin to print. Have you heard of it? You actually have to set up a code, and then you have to punch it in. You have to go to the printer, remember the code, and then you print the document. So that's what my aide-de-camp calls adulting. It's time to become an adult, sir. So he supervises me in this quest for self-sufficiency, and it seems to be working. And we also have to buy a house. We've only lived on bases and posts for 39 years. So what a terrible time to buy a house, right? I mean, the interest rates are up. Annie and I, we're looking at houses all the time, and $1 million gets you like a 3 or 4 bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and that's it. Like for $1 million, wouldn't you think you would get like a hacienda with 10 acres and it would be deluxe? You would think so. Maybe in southern Wisconsin or northern Illinois, but not around here. So we're going through that right now. And then I think the last thing is in retirement class, they tell you to have an elevator speech, right? Yeah, mine sucks. It's terrible. So I asked my team for help. Can you guys help me with this elevator speech? And they're like, no, sir, you got to be self-sufficient. You got to do that on your own. So anyway, listen, this is a wonderful event. I'm so proud to be here with the INSA crew. I'm so proud to be here with Sue and the DI teammates. Really a wonderful evening. Thanks, and thanks for being here, and I look forward to more going on tonight. Thank you.
General Berrier, thank you for your 39 years of service. And I know there are a lot of people here in the room who look forward to helping you with that transition to adulting. I'd like to say a lot of folks here have already done it and have done it well. So I know you've got a lot of friends and supporters in the room. But something I wanted to bring to your attention, and I'm really actually glad he had a conflict this evening. At almost every IMSA dinner, Charlie Allen is at the head table. And this evening, he could not be here. And I wanted to let you all know that on June 20th, we will be celebrating Charlie Allen's 65 years of service to the intelligence community. And we will be doing so early in the morning because Charlie is an early morning person. So please mark your calendars for June 20th from 8 to 10 a.m. It's so rare we actually have the opportunity to thank our leaders in person for their service to the intelligence community. One other item of interest I just wanted to mention, INSA partners with AFCEA to host a summit every year. Usually it is in September in the fall. We have switched to the July timeframe, and we will be holding it on July 13th and 14th. So I hope you all will also mark your calendars for that event. I'm going to turn the evening over to the service staff until we welcome Sue and General Berrier back on the stage. Enjoy your dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Suzanne Wilson Heckenberg, President of INSA.
Thank you. It's nights like tonight I really miss Tish, who does a much better job of quieting the room than I do. Anyway, I'll channel my innermost Tish. I hope you all enjoyed dinner. It's now my pleasure to introduce this evening's moderator, the Honorable Sue Gordon. As many of you all know, Sue's career accomplishments are almost too many to count. She asked me not to, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Deputy Director of NGA, many senior executive positions, and she is also a senior intelligence advisor to INSA. She continues to support the mission by advising companies in strategy, technology, security, and leadership development, as well as a mentor to many of you all in the room. We are thrilled to have her lead this discussion with General Scott Berrier. Please join me in welcoming Sue, I kept it brief, to the stage. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Suzanne. That was really pretty good. Joe Berrier. So good to see you all. I love INSA events because it's like, it's like being dipped in the fountain of youth, seeing all my friends across my whole career. If you'll allow me just 1 minute of personal privilege. I have 3 thoughts on Vince. One is a story that, to me, says everything. My last job was hard. And when you have jobs at the top, there aren't a whole lot of people you can whine to, and so you end up just taking it. One day I was having a particularly tough day, and my phone rang, and it was Vince. And he just said, "How you doing?" Now, it may be that he knows I can't lie, but I can tell you that that question of "how you doing" was everything and said everything about him. That's one. The second is a piece of advice for all the young people just beginning. You will pursue great accomplishment. You'll have the opportunity to do great things. But listen to us talk about Vince, someone who has done more than almost anyone, and that's not what we talk about. We talk about his humanity. So along the way, whatever you do, be kind, because it will make a difference. And the third is, I too was just astounded by Phyllis's strength. I know I, for one, was feeling broken by the loss. And then I remembered that I had no right to ever have known him. So my choice is to feel grateful for every minute I have. So on these days that it is really hard to deal, just remember we had no right to know him, and we all did. Keep that in your heart. You know, do you remember when we first met, to kind of keep the theme going?
You're going to tell us.
I did. Now, I was the principal deputy, so I usually didn't get to deal with the big guys. I had the deputies on my committee, but one day I had General Berrier call me, and I snapped to attention. Thank you. I snapped to attention, and I thought, what is he going to do? Is he going to ask me for money? Is he going to tell me something that we need to do? Instead, what he did was he said, hey, we've got an officer that's kind of trapped in the system that we have to save. Think about that. So this theme of taking care of people is really, really, really super important. And General Berrier, that's where I'm going to start. Are we ready technically, or should I stretch it out?
I think we're ready.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's where we're going to start, people.
Okay.
You and I share a passion for our humans and for leadership. And that's something that you and I have talked about over your whole tenure. So tell me about how it's going with your humans that you're so proud of. How is their path over this time and their development of leadership?
We could spend the entire evening here on this one question, Sue. Thank you, and it's so good to be here with you again. I feel like I'm in the trenches with you again. It's good to have you in the trenches. In fact, I don't like you being out of the trenches. So, hey, listen, our workforce is amazing. And you know, the interesting thing about coming in every morning at 5:30 is some days you'll be walking in with 23-year-olds, and other days you'll be walking in with 73-year-olds. And they hear things differently. But the amazing thing is they're all contributing. Every week I get the honor of swearing in our new officers in a course we call Touchstone, which is sort of our onboarding program. And in that course, and it's mostly young people, I talk about the oath of office, and I focus in on the history of the oath, what the oath said in 1775, what it said in 1789, when it changed to account for foreign and domestic enemies in 1880. And then I zoom in on the oath that we have today, and I talk about this line that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. And we pause on that for a moment, and then we walk over to the DIA Creed. And as you walk in the front door of the agency, on panels on the right-hand side, our creed is there. And one of the verses in the creed talks about being excellent. And if you buy into the oath and you buy into the creed and the fact that we give you this blue IC badge, and if you think about it, how many blue IC badges are there in this country? Not many, maybe 100, maybe 150,000 across all of the agencies and the services. Not many people could actually have that badge. And so we vetted you. We put you on the poly. We asked you really hard questions. You are qualified to be here. But when you take the oath, when you buy into the creed, we give you that blue badge. We expect you to be excellent. We expect you to uphold to the standards of the United States of America. We expect you to contribute to the national security of the United States and the intelligence community because you are in the IC. And that foundation starts there. And when you look at the talent management system we have, the professional development system we have, the training opportunities, the global presence that we have at DIA, I think it makes us unique. I think it makes us stand out in the IC, and the value proposition for them to stay is high. And so we've come a long way there. I also believe that the culture in the organization, engaged leadership, focusing down, taking a serious interest in the professional and personal lives of others, is permeating through the agency, and we're much, much better today. And I believe that with the investments that we've made in our HR team and what we're doing, it's going to be the premier agency. I'm not shy about saying that.
You know, I think you're right. I feel it when I am given the chance to come in, and you know, this is a leadership moment. You know, times of strategic uncertainty are actually leadership moments.
Absolutely.
And when I talk to your assembled team, man, it's a bouncy audience. Clearly there's something good going on there that makes them believe that they feel that weight and that opportunity. So that's pretty good stuff.
You know, I was talking with a Secretary of Defense in another nation, and he visited DIA, and he's like, you know, when I come in here, I just feel a positive vibe. When I go into other agencies, and I won't mention which ones,
Okay, be really careful. Be really
it
careful
doesn't
about
quite feel
this.
this way. It doesn't feel like people are really happy, having a great time.
Good choice to just, you know.
I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, DIA is a great place to work.
I loved in your keynote your discussion of four armies. It's a construct that I think is really useful. I usually talk about it in terms of four epochs of national security threats. You described it really well. So I'm going to let you choose your own adventure.
Okay.
So talk about that arc of four armies or four epochs, either in terms of partnership and how the needs of partnership have changed and where we are now in terms of partnership.
Right.
Or innovation.
Right.
You can choose either one.
Okay, I'll start with partnership and maybe we'll get to innovation.
I figured you might.
So when you think about that army that I described in 1984, our partners were pretty much traditional NATO allies, and the Five Eyes. Even then, the Five Eyes was strong, but it was really focused on the threat at the time. And then as that threat diminished and the Soviet Empire went away, some of those partnerships waned a bit. But when I think about what's happening right now in, say, Russia, Ukraine, A lot of those partnerships that were on the wane are on the rise. Think about some of those European partners that we had traditionally not been all that close to. We are close to them now for very good reasons. When I think about China and the Indo-Pacific, partners want to reach out to us. They want to have relationships. DIA is always focused on multilateral relationships, and we think there are strength in numbers, but there is a time for bilateral relationships and partnerships as well. And so it's taking advantage of the best of the bilateral and the multilateral forums that we have to really be able to bring their capabilities to bear, because we can't do it all. There just aren't enough resources in our country for us to do it all, and they want to help. And so partnerships that actually want to contribute makes me really happy and really interested in what they have to say. And we have to be able to evaluate when a partnership isn't working so well or we're not getting much out of it. And that does happen. And I think you have to put those partnerships on hold for a bit and then have a conversation about what comes next. So really, really happy with where the partnership landscape is going. The fact that we have integrated a Commonwealth officer as our deputy is huge. Michelle's the third one now, and that's not going to stop. We'll continue to have that, and I think it's really unique in DIA.
I love that. I do think that there is different kinds of partners. So there are traditional partners. I love your point about the ones that were waxing, they're now waning. I think that's true. But there are different partnerships, right? There are this moment where the world seems to know everything.
Yeah.
And we have to have partnership with people that we don't know how to trust in the same way. And we have to have partnership with the national security decision makers that happen to not be in governments.
Right.
How are you finding that?
I think it's a challenge. So when we set up the Partner Mission Integration Office, we wanted to pull in all of these different partnerships. And when you think about DI as an agency, we had a lot of partnerships, and we do have a lot of partnerships, but largely based on personal relationships. If somebody knew an instructor or a professor down at Georgetown, that was a partnership, and we didn't have a very good beat on it. If somebody had a friend or a partner in the defense industrial base, didn't have a great beat on that because no one else really knew about it. The same with think tanks, and the same with other organizations, non-traditional partners, say Treasury, FBI, other organizations in the U.S. What we're trying to do is to get a handle on all those partnerships so that we can see them in real time. Is there an academic partnership that we are not taking advantage of that we can get something more from? Who is in the outreach to these partners? Because the PMI office can't do it all, but they have to have a beat on who does own the relationship and who has it, and being able to track that in real time is very, very helpful to leadership at DIA.
Here's a paid political announcement. I can ask questions forever. It would be best if you all introduce some of your own. So there are interns walking all around who will take your questions from you, and I might deign to include some of them in my chat with General Berrier.
And Bob Sharp is here. He's offered to answer a bunch of these questions.
He's playing along in the audience right now. He actually gave me the sign. He says, "You're doing all right." Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned China Mission Group, and I do think that that's part of this Army, this epic, that they've been lurking, but now we know.
Yeah.
So you formed the China Mission Group. I love that.
We did.
Tell me how it's going.
So it's going really well. So if you recall where we were with the regional integrated intelligence centers, we decided to break out the China Mission Group out of the Asia Pacific Regional Center. And so we stood up the CMG. We pulled as much China expertise into that as we could, really focused on China and Taiwan and that problem set. And then we created the Indo-Pacific Regional Center to cover the rest of the Indo-Pacific, because it's really, really important. They have to work closely together. And so now what you find within the DDGI is this integration of the entire intelligence mission set, from analysis, collection, production, and then sensitive activities and everything else being integrated in those intelligence centers under the DDGI rubric, and it's going very well. And it's vertical integration, horizontal integration, and as we like to say, integration's fine until it happens to you, and then it's not so much fun anymore. So it's been a bit of a cultural change in DIA. We're working through that, because let's face it, if you've been doing something since 1960, change comes difficult sometimes.
Yeah, but I love the push, and I bet this is a great motivator, in a way depressingly, because, and we'll get to Russia-Ukraine, but as you see Russia-Ukraine, you also see looming the prospect of China-Taiwan.
Right.
And That's got to be a great motivator for that team to say, how do we have the foundational and operational intelligence in order to be able to be as prepared for that?
So part of this, Sue, when I was briefing Admiral Aquilino a couple years ago, and we have a display of sort of where we're based, DI bases and things going on across the world, and at the time it sort of looks like a Warsaw Pact focused kind of DIA with the presence that we had in Europe. And he said, hey, I think you're out of position. And so that really got us thinking about where we need to be inside the Indo-Pacific, really got us thinking about the China Mission Group. And this is all by, with, and through Indo-PACOM, our key partners out there. If you don't know it, all of those combatant commands are staff, those intelligence staffs are DI folks. So it gives us a very, very good feel for what's happening inside those combatant commands, what their intelligence requirements are, reach back support back to DIA.
Yeah, it's a moment.
It is.
But this is actually how new generations are built, right?
Well, and the moment is I want to stay. I'm not ready to leave. I can't announce who my replacement is, but he may be watching.
Okay. I was going to save this to the end.
Yeah.
Quit whining about transition.
Yeah, I know.
At least you knew you were one's coming.
Well, yeah. I'm standing down. And down.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your ambulance.
I'm professionally embarrassed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel shitty. Yeah.
They're so happy. I think boom.
Yeah.
Okay, settle down. But I am feeling kind of smug. Oh, thanks. So take your time with this answer so I can choose amongst these.
All right.
Riveting questions.
Right.
Yes, I know they're riveting. There are the horrors of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We're going to talk about that, but let us not minimize just how difficult that has been. But for us in the intelligence community, and certainly for the DIA, there have to be lessons learned about intelligence from that. And then taking those and saying, okay, how do I then imagine what's next, taking those lessons? So give the group a little bit of reflection on lessons learned so far, because we have not done.
So it was all about partnerships, all about policy, and I think the next thing is communication, setting up a network where you can actually take all of that good information to share and actually do it. All that was your DIA working with other partners, of course. And then I think the last thing is these mics don't like me. The last thing is really on the analysis piece, and so on our there were things that we were doing watching the Russian army and the Ukrainians. Much of it we got right. There were things that we could have done better. And as I think about analysis on will to fight. That was one of those things that we probably didn't spend enough time talking about and questioning our assumptions about what we thought the Russians could be or what they would do. And it turns out the Ukrainians were a lot better than even we estimated. And now we find ourselves in this much later. And the Ukrainians are doing pretty well. And we are in this with them. We're sharing with them every single day. And we're hopeful as this thing kicks off.
So one of the questions I have here is imagining those lessons, and I think they're terrific, and I know you're applying them in real time. I think that's one of the most interesting things for me to watch from the outside is just how quickly those lessons are being applied. Imagine China-Taiwan.
Right.
Which of the lessons are relevant and which ones are we going to have to push off of and develop some?
So I think they're all relevant. I think the one that probably has my most immediate sense of urgency is partnerships, right? When you think about the geography here, it's comparing apples and oranges. Mm-hmm. We had partners in Europe that could really help. The geography doesn't lend itself to that in the Indo-Pacific in a different scenario. So really focusing on partnerships, really making sure that we can communicate with them when they need to be communicated with, and working that really hard with our team.
I think one of the things that I notice when I think about Ukraine is the use of commercial capability.
Right.
So talk whether that's communications or whether that's commercial imagery. I mean, you just see it every day. So pull that thread through in
Right.
terms of how do you think that's going to impact not only warfighting in general, but our partners' ability to be autonomous at some level.
Right. I think what NGA has been able to do with the commercial imagery front, especially in this conflict, has been amazing. In many cases, that is the foundational level of information that they need, and they're getting it fed to them every single day. So really, really proud of our NGA teammates that help us do that on a daily basis, whether that's sharing from DI Maine, whether that's sharing from UCOM, or the organization that we have in place called SAGU that does that as well. At every level, the sharing is going on. And I think it is really a game changer. On the communications front, there are commercial capabilities out there that our Ukrainian partners are taking advantage of. There are commercial capabilities that we are actually taking advantage of on classified networks, which is pretty exciting and allows us to be a lot lighter, a lot more agile, and a lot quicker to the place that we need to be. Really interesting.
So one of the things I think that DIA has really been a leader in is just thinking through the use of open information, whether that is open source or commercially
Right.
available. I mean, you've been pushing on this for several years. How's that going, both in terms of using all the data that are available to us, and then the other half, which is using that open data to push information out?
Yeah, Lieutenant General Sam Wilson said in the 70s, former DI director, really interesting guy, by the way, that everything that DI did 70% of it could be found in the open source. So if you think about the plethora of information that's out there today with all the data, that number's way up there. When I think about the open source integration center that DI now has and the Defense Intelligence Enterprise Management authorities that DI has, it's up to us to sort of lasso this down. It's no longer the Wild Wild West. So what we're doing is putting a governance mechanism in place, training and tradecraft procedures and policies, putting a catalog in place to make sure that the data that we're all buying, we're getting the best price that we can, and that's a little bit of contracting work, a little bit of oversight, and then making sure that we have a roadmap ahead for open source, because every combatant command is using it, every service is using it in different ways, and we just have to make sure that the rules of the road are there, and that we're doing it, treating it like every other int.
Yeah, and you have the advantage of you thought of Mars beforehand, and so I would imagine that Mars is a great capability to imagine the introduction of open information.
Right, and if you think about AI, ML, and the publicly available information, the commercially available information, how that you could infuse that to make these files much, much richer in real time, set alarms, makes it a lot easier and quicker for analysts, and probably cuts down a little bit on the manpower as well.
You know, I was asked the other day, how would I remember from a national security perspective 2022? And Ukraine was certainly an easy answer, but my answer was it was the last year we'd talk about AI in the future tense.
Interesting.
So given what you just said, whether about what we're learning about innovation from the Ukraine conflict or where we are into the use of all the data that exists, how are you thinking about generative AI?
So when I think about AI and the pattern analysis and clustering of concepts, these things as AI can pull in, it can do a lot, and it can make our job easier with a lot of information, but it can't determine intent. Now it can get you on a road to what you think might be intent, but this is where critical thinking and analysts really come in. So there's a lot of talk out there about AI replacing analysts, and maybe in some workflows. It might reduce the manpower, but I don't think it's going to reduce all of it, because you have to be able to critically think about what their intent is, and AI is not going to give you that.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy, Reid Hoffman, a renowned innovator, and he's just written a book that he co-authored with ChatGPT. And I said, come on. I kind of made it a little bit of the same point.
Yeah.
And he said, one of the things that you can think about it today, it's like the best research assistant you've ever had.
Right.
Right.
Assistant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's the best research you've ever had. I love your point about intent. I hadn't thought of it before. What I noticed is it also can't develop an action plan.
Right.
Right. And so thinking about, I know. Aren't you excited about what's going on right now in AI with the large language module? It is moving so fast.
It definitely is going to make us better, faster, stronger.
It was.
I think we have to go carefully, and we have to very carefully evaluate tools. And I know sometimes At DI, we're accused of moving a little slowly on that. We're trying to be faster. We're trying to be better. I hear you. And we're working on that right now. But I think you have to be really, really careful in this space for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's neither going to spell the end of the world nor is it the answer to everything.
Right.
I think our challenge is how do we take advantage of what's happening without slowing it too much. I think
Right.
so. No one better than you to preside over this
Thanks.
this moment. No, truly. So we've talked a lot about technology and data and organizations and targets. We talked about our humans. Talk a little bit about culture change.
Right.
Right, and I'll say it differently, not culture change, but the role of culture, organizational culture in this moment where we need so much, when so much is uncertain and we're just counting on our women and men to be able to lift us into interacting with this Fourth Army.
Right. So I think the key is how do you be, as a leader, how do you be your best self? And how do you stay engaged seriously in the lives of others in a way that makes people know that you care? I mean, I think it all comes down to doing the right thing at the right time for the people that work for you. And too often as we get into our daily grind, we sort of forget that. We forget about what our lower ranking officers are doing on a daily basis. Is the work meaningful? Are they getting satisfaction? Are they being professionally developed? And it's really about a question, right? It's about the engagement with the folks that work for you. And I think that's part of a cultural problem in any organization that loses its way. I mean, you become separated from the workforce. We can't have that. I expect all of my leaders to be seriously engaged in the lives of others, professionally and personally, and make sure that our workforce knows that they're there, that they care, and that they're doing the right thing.
Great, thanks. So a half step from that, let's talk. We talked a little bit about lessons learned from Ukraine conflict. Humor me on talking some lessons learned with the most recent leak we have of data from someone from the inside, and most. And mostly, here's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
No, serious. I think you were talking about culture. When I squint at it, I see a cultural issue. There are lessons we will learn inside the government. How do we translate those to our colleagues and the other folks inside the national security tent that are not necessarily in government institutions?
Sure.
So this isn't that question about this.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
This is about how do we look at this and use this moment.
So first off, active investigation, FBI, NCIS, Air Force is looking at this as well with Aaliyah. I know that this is first and foremost on your mind. And while I can't and won't talk about that.
Yep, I don't want you to.
I would just say that as an intelligence professional, I was personally shocked, professionally stunned when it happened. And I think everybody feels that way, right? And in a system that is based on trust, the fact is that we vet all of our intelligence professionals, and I think we do that well. And every once in a while, there's a glitch, and I think we had our glitch. And now it's up to us to learn lessons from this and actually be better stewards of what we're supposed to be doing with that blue badge and keeping our information. So much more to follow on this, but we are, as an intelligence community, coming together and working every angle of this. And you know what, the good thing is about our IC right now is when I think about my peers across the agencies and the services, we are all friends. And that is the asymmetric advantage that we have, not only in this space, but against our adversaries.
Yeah.
You know, I think about organizations like the GRU and the FSB. Do they really get along? Yeah, probably not. We all get along, and we all work together. And our boss, Avril Haines, and our other boss, Ron Moultrie, expects that from us, and that's what we do every single day. So as we go forward, we will learn lessons. We'll share those lessons when we can, and we'll ensure that our partners know that, and that we take this seriously, and we'll do the best we can.
When you were saying that about being friends within the leadership of the intelligence community, I think that's one of the reasons why you can have an intelligence community that is a loose confederation of independent agencies. That's because of the goodwill and the recognition of the leadership that it is a collective effort.
I wish we could all be a little more synchronized at times. But you know, it is the nature of our IC with all of its capability to move to the sound of friction and action and what we've tried to do at DIA by creating this operational position with our DDGI is to be able to harness all of the capability and move it to the right place. I think there's a lesson learned, and I've spoken to the DNI about this, like who's the J3 for the IC? Yeah, that's a good question.
Gosh, I wish I could come back and help answer it.
Yeah, I might be available. I might be available to do that job.
My PTSD just showed up when you were saying, gosh. Okay, I love this question. 39 years, it's a pretty good run.
Yeah.
Best moment. Don't think too hard.
No, I'll tell you
'Cause
what.
you have
no, I'll tell you what.
infinite.
I did an offsite with senior leaders over the last 2 days, and I told them that this position has been the best, most rewarding, and honor of my life. And I would say I've done a lot of things in the Army, deployed a lot, served with great commanders and units, but being the director of DI has been truly, truly special, and I'd say that's the high point.
I would try and hide the author of this, but you know. Superhero, Marvel.
No, I get to pick my
No,
superhero.
Marvel.
It's G.I. Joe.
Nice. So just a couple more questions, because it's a school night.
That's right, yeah. Nobody wants to go home.
It's a school night. Well, actually, a couple of observations. One, you're wrong about what's going to most vex you in transition. It's getting to someplace on time. You've been a kept man.
Oh, man.
I don't think I was on time for a meeting for my first 2 months.
Right?
So just straight up double the time.
Maybe I should just start driving myself to meetings.
Yeah, just straight up.
Yeah.
Just straight up double the time. I mean, that parking thing is so annoying.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have to worry about that much.
So annoying. Someone wants me to force you to give an elevator pitch. I'm not going to do that because I like you too much. You're still working on it.
No, I'll do it. It's
okay,
crappy.
I'm ready. Go. Is it good?
Hi.
If it's not good, don't do it.
I'm going to do it. Hi, my name is Scott Berrier. I'm a Defense Intelligence Enterprise Senior Leader and a National Security Expert. I would like to assist you in making your company more successful. I think I can do that, and I think I've got skills and attributes that you might be interested in.
That's
See,
pretty good.
It's crappy. Now everybody thinks I'm looking for a job, but you asked.
The only thing, I'll help you here, because I'm your friend. The only thing I'd change is you don't think you can help them. You know you can.
Oh. Okay.
You know you can. All right, last question.
Okay.
Why are you hopeful?
I am hopeful because every morning when I walk in at 5:30, I'm seeing the best intelligence employees on the planet. These kids, these mid-grade employees, these more senior citizens that are still in the agency are rocking it every single day, and I'm so proud of them. I am hopeful because of the people that we have working for us. Yeah, I am. They're great.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and my good friend, General Scott Berrier.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be here. You're the best. Thank you.
This is Federal Secure Technologies, Amazon Web Services, CACI, General Dynamics Information Systems, Google Cloud, Leidos, Maxar, MITRE, Oracle Cloud, Quadrant, Raytheon Intelligence and Space, SAIC, and Texas A&M University, the Bush School. But one sponsor I want to point out to you all is the CACI sponsor. They sponsored the flowers. And usually I say, take the flowers home with you, enjoy them over the next few days. But I wanted to touch on something Sue said, which I think is extremely important given the evening we've just shared. Take your flowers, enjoy them tonight, enjoy them over coffee tomorrow, and maybe take them to somebody tomorrow who might appreciate them, and be kind. Drive safely, and see you all soon.